I didn't even realize something was off at first. That's the messed up part. When you're inside something that feels normal, comfortable, predictable, you stop questioning the little things. You assume consistency means safety. You assume love, if it's been steady long enough, just kind of runs on autopilot. Her name was Emily. We'd been together a little over 3 years, living in a small 2-bedroom apartment just outside Denver. Nothing fancy. Thin walls, outdated kitchen cabinets, the kind of place where the heater rattles like it's about to quit every winter. But it was ours. Or at least it felt like it was. Emily had this way of making space feel warm, not in some over-the-top Pinterest way, just subtle things. She'd leave a lamp on in the living room if she knew I was getting home late. She'd keep my favorite beer stocked without asking. Little habits that made you feel like someone was thinking about you even when you weren't there. That's actually the first thing I noticed when it started changing. She stopped doing the little things. At first, I brushed it off. People get busy. She worked in marketing for a mid-sized company downtown, and I knew things had been hectic for her. Deadlines, new clients, office politics. She'd vent about it sometimes, pacing around the apartment with her phone pressed to her ear, barefoot, hair tied up in that messy bun I used to love. But then it wasn't just work stress. It was distance. Not obvious distance. Nothing dramatic. No fights, no yelling. Just this quiet shift. She stopped reaching for me in her sleep. That might sound small, but if you've ever shared a bed with someone long enough, you know what I mean. For years, she had this unconscious habit of sliding closer during the night, her hand resting on my chest or her leg tangled with mine. It was automatic, like breathing. And then one night, I woke up and she was all the way on the other side of the bed. Didn't think much of it. But then it happened again, and again. Soon it became normal for there to be space between us. I told myself it didn't mean anything. People change sleeping positions all the time. That's what I kept repeating in my head. But something about it stuck with me. Then came the second thing. She stopped asking about my day. That one hit harder than I expected. Emily used to be the kind of person who genuinely cared about the details, not just how was work, but specific questions. Did your boss ever respond to that proposal? Or how did that meeting go with the Chicago clients? She remembered everything. It made me feel seen. And then suddenly, she didn't ask anymore. I'd come home, drop my keys on the counter, and she'd be on the couch scrolling through her phone. I'd say, "Hey," and she'd look up, smile quickly, and go right back to whatever she was doing. No follow-up. At first, I filled the silence myself. I'd start talking about my day like I always did. But halfway through, I'd notice she wasn't really listening. Not fully. Her eyes would drift back to her screen, her responses delayed, distracted. "Yeah, that sounds stressful," she'd say, without even looking at me. It felt hollow. I told myself she was just tired. But then there was the third thing, and this one I couldn't ignore. She started protecting her phone. Emily was never secretive before. Her phone would be lying around all the time, on the kitchen counter, the coffee table, even on the bed. She didn't care if I used it to look something up or change the music. Then one night, I picked it up absent-mindedly to check the time, and she snatched it out of my hand so fast it actually startled me. "What are you doing?" she said, way sharper than necessary. "I was just checking the time," I replied, confused. She blinked, like she realized how it sounded, then forced a small laugh. "Sorry. Work stuff, confidential emails and all that." I nodded, but something didn't sit right. After that, her phone was always with her. Bathroom, kitchen, even when she stepped out onto the balcony for a quick call. Screen always face down. Notifications silenced. I started noticing how often she'd smile at her phone. Not big smiles, subtle ones. The kind you don't even realize you're making. That's when the thought first crept in. It wasn't loud. It wasn't some dramatic realization. Just a quiet, uncomfortable question. Is she talking to someone? I hated myself for even thinking it. Emily wasn't that kind of person. At least, not the version of her I knew. She was loyal, grounded. The type of woman who rolled her eyes at cheating stories like they were something that happened to other people, not us. But once that thought got in, it didn't leave. It just sat there, growing. And then came the fourth thing. She stopped fighting with me. That might sound like a good thing, but it wasn't. Not in our case. We used to argue sometimes. Nothing toxic. Just normal relationship stuff. Who forgot to take out the trash, who spent too much money on takeout, stupid everyday disagreements that usually ended with us laughing or making up an hour later. But now, nothing. I could say something mildly irritating, something that would have definitely sparked a reaction before, and she just let it go. One night, I came home late without texting her. Old Emily would have been annoyed, maybe a little worried. She would have said something like, "A heads up would have been nice." That night, she barely looked up. "You're back late," she said casually. "Yeah, got caught up at work."
Okay, that was it. No emotion, no irritation, no curiosity. It felt wrong, because the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference, and she was starting to feel indifferent. That's when I began to notice something else, something that at the time confused me more than anything. She started doing things for me again, but differently. It wasn't the same natural, effortless care she used to show. This felt intentional, almost like she was checking boxes. She'd randomly cook my favorite meals out of nowhere, even when she claimed she was too busy to cook most nights. She'd leave little notes on the fridge, short, generic stuff like, "Have a great day," or "Don't forget to eat." At first, it felt like things were going back to normal, but then I realized it didn't feel real. It felt like she was trying to prove something, like she was overcompensating. One night, she came up behind me while I was doing dishes and wrapped her arms around my waist. She hadn't done that in weeks. "I love you," she said softly. I froze, not because I didn't want to hear it, but because of how it felt. Off. There was no warmth behind it, no weight, just words. I turned around and looked at her, really looked at her. Her eyes didn't match her voice. "Love you too," I said. And for the first time in our entire relationship, it felt like a lie. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. The distance, the phone, the sudden forced affection, the lack of real connection. It all pointed somewhere. I just didn't want to admit where. Around 2 a.m., I heard her phone buzz. She shifted slightly, reached over and grabbed it immediately. The screen lit up her face in the dark. I watched as her expression changed. Just for a second, but it was enough. That small, unconscious smile again. My chest tightened. "Who is it?" I asked, my voice quieter than I expected. She hesitated.
Then she turned the phone off and placed it face down on the nightstand. "Just work," she said. At 2 a.m., I didn't respond. I just turned away from her, staring into the darkness, my mind racing. That was the moment everything changed. Not because I had proof, but because, deep down, I knew. Something was already broken. I just hadn't figured out how bad it really was yet. I didn't confront her the next morning. I thought about it, more than once, but every time I opened my mouth, something stopped me. It wasn't fear of the truth. It was fear of what came after it. Because once you say it out loud, once you ask the question, there's no going back to not knowing. So I played it cool. Or at least, I tried to. I got up like usual, made coffee, scrolled through my phone at the kitchen counter while she got ready for work. Everything looked normal on the surface. She moved around the apartment like she always did, brushing her teeth, tying her hair back, grabbing her bag. But now that I'd seen it, really seen it, I couldn't unsee it. She kept checking her phone. Not casually, not absent-mindedly. It was deliberate. Quick glances, subtle movements, like she was making sure I didn't notice, which only made it more obvious. At one point, she stepped into the hallway just to respond to something, her voice low, almost a whisper. "Yeah, I'll text you later," she said, before hanging up. I stood there in the kitchen, gripping my coffee mug a little too tightly, staring at nothing. "Who was that?" I asked when she came back in. She didn't hesitate this time. "Work. Always work." She kissed me on the cheek before leaving, like she always did. Same routine, same motion. But again, it felt empty, like muscle memory, not emotion. The second the door closed, the apartment felt different. Quieter, colder. And that's when I did something I'm not proud of. I started paying attention. Not in a casual way, not in a just noticing things kind of way. I mean really paying attention. Patterns, timing, behavior. That day, I left work early, told my boss I wasn't feeling great, which wasn't entirely a lie. My stomach had been in knots since the night before. I sat in my car across the street from her office building for almost an hour, feeling like a complete idiot, like some paranoid guy in a bad movie. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, that I'd feel stupid when she walked out alone, got into her car, and drove home like she always did. But then she didn't. Around 5:40, I saw her walk out of the building, and she wasn't alone. He was tall, taller than me, probably 6 foot or so. Dark hair, clean cut, wearing one of those fitted button-down shirts that made it obvious he spent time in a gym. The kind of guy you notice without wanting to. They weren't touching. Not at first. They walked side by side, talking, laughing about something. And that laugh, her laugh, hit me harder than anything, because I hadn't heard it like that in weeks, maybe longer. They stopped near the corner, just before the parking garage. There was this moment, this pause, where everything slowed down. He said something. I couldn't hear it, but I saw her reaction. She looked down, smiling, then back up at him. And then he reached out and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. It was such a small gesture, so casual, so intimate, and she didn't pull away. That was it. That was the moment. I felt something drop in my chest, like an elevator cable snapping. Not anger, not yet.
just this heavy, sinking realization that settled deep in my stomach. She leaned in. Not a full kiss, not right there on the street, but close enough that there was no question what it meant. And then they separated like it was nothing, like it was normal. She walked toward the parking garage. He went the other way. I sat there in my car, completely still, staring straight ahead, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I didn't follow her. I didn't confront her. I just drove home. In the entire drive, my mind kept replaying that moment, over and over again. The way she smiled, the way she leaned in, the way she didn't hesitate. That's the thing no one tells you about betrayal. It's not just the act itself. It's how natural it looks, how easy it is for them. When she got home that evening, I was already there, sitting on the couch like everything was normal. The TV was on, some random show I wasn't even watching. She walked in, dropped her bag by the door, and smiled at me. Hey, same smile, same voice, like nothing had happened. Hey, I replied. I watched her carefully as she moved around the apartment. The way she kicked off her shoes, the way she stretched her arms over her head like she always did after work. Every little detail felt fake now, or maybe it always had been, and I was just too blind to see it. How was your day? She asked, grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge. There it was, that question she hadn't asked in weeks, and suddenly it made sense. She wasn't asking because she cared. She was asking because she felt guilty. It was fine, I said. She nodded, like that was enough, then leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone again. I watched her for a second before speaking. Busy at work? Yeah, she said quickly. Crazy day. I almost laughed. Crazy day. Yeah, I bet. I stood up and walked over to her, close enough that she had to look up from her phone. Who is he? I asked. The words came out calm, too calm, but they landed like a bomb. Her entire body stiffened. What? She said, her voice suddenly tight. The guy you were with after work. Silence. For a second, I thought she might actually tell the truth. But then I saw it, that shift in her eyes, that defensive wall going up. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. There it was, the lie. Clean, immediate, automatic. And somehow that hurt more than what I saw earlier. I was there, Emily, I said, my voice still steady. I saw you. She looked away, shaking her head slightly. He's just a coworker. Coworkers don't look at each other like that. You're overthinking it. No, I said quietly. I'm not. Another pause. Longer this time. I could feel the tension building between us, thick and suffocating. His name's Ryan, she finally said, almost under her breath. There it was. A name. Something real. I nodded slowly, letting it sink in. How long? I asked. It's not what you think, she said quickly. That line, that stupid, predictable line. Then tell me what it is, I replied. She hesitated, and in that hesitation, I got my answer. Because if there was nothing to hide, she wouldn't need time to come up with it. It just happened, she said. I let out a breath, running a hand through my hair. Nothing just happens, Emily. She looked at me then, and for the first time, I saw something real in her expression. Not love, not even regret, just conflict. I didn't plan this, she said, but you didn't stop it either. She didn't respond, because she couldn't, and that silence said everything. I stepped back, putting space between us. Do you love him? I asked. That question hit her harder than anything else. I could see it in the way her face changed, the way her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to answer but didn't know how. I don't know, she said, and somehow that was worse than a yes, because I don't know means it's already gone too far. It means feelings are involved.
Real ones. I nodded slowly, absorbing it, even though every part of me wanted to reject it. And you still tell me you love me? I said. She looked down at the floor. I do, she whispered. I let out a quiet, almost hollow laugh. No, I said, you don't. Because now I understood something I hadn't before. All those little things she used to do, they weren't random. They weren't just habits. They were signs, real signs. And the moment those signs started disappearing, that's when I should have known. Love doesn't just vanish overnight. It fades, quietly, piece by piece, until one day you're standing in your own apartment, looking at someone you thought you knew, and realizing they've already given parts of themselves to someone else. And the worst part? You didn't even see it happening. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't do any of the things you see in movies when someone finds out they're being cheated on. There was no explosion, no dramatic meltdown. It was quieter than that. Heavier.
like everything inside me just dropped. Emily stood there across from me, arms wrapped around herself like she was cold, even though the apartment felt too warm, almost suffocating. I could hear the hum of the fridge, the faint sound of a car passing outside, the kind of background noise you never notice until something in your life cracks open and suddenly everything feels too sharp, too real. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said again, softer this time, like if she said it gently enough it might hurt less. I just looked at her. "That doesn't actually mean anything," I replied. She flinched, like the words hit her harder than I intended. But I wasn't trying to hurt her, not consciously. I just didn't have it in me to soften things anymore. "Do you think I wanted this?" she asked, her voice rising slightly. "Do you think I planned to feel this way?" I shook my head slowly. "I don't know what you wanted, Emily. That's kind of the problem." Silence stretched between us again, thick and uncomfortable. I walked past her into the living room, running my hand along the back of the couch like I needed something solid to hold on to. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't get a full breath. She followed me, hesitant, like she wasn't sure how close she was allowed to get anymore. "It started a few months ago," she said. I closed my eyes for a second. A few months. So all those nights she said she was working late, all those weekends she claimed she had deadlines, all the times she seemed distracted, distant, somewhere else entirely. It wasn't random. It was him. "His name is Ryan," she added, like I hadn't already heard it, like repeating it made it more legitimate somehow. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I got that part." "We worked on a project together," she continued. "We were just around each other a lot, talking. At first, it was nothing." I let out a small, bitter breath. "It's never nothing." She didn't argue with that. "I don't even remember when it changed," she said. "It just did. We started texting more, then calling, then..." She trailed off, her voice catching slightly. "Then you started lying to me," I finished for her. Her face tightened. "I didn't want to hurt you." That lying again. I turned to look at her, really look this time, and there was something almost surreal about it. This was the same person who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during long drives, the same person who used to laugh at stupid inside jokes no one else would understand. And now she was standing in front of me, admitting to building something real with someone else. "You don't get to say that," I said, my voice low. "You don't get to do this and then act like you were trying to protect me." "I was confused," she said quickly. "I still am." "No," I replied, shaking my head. "You're not confused. You just didn't want to make a choice." That landed. I saw it in the way her eyes shifted, the way her shoulders dropped slightly. Because that was the truth. She didn't stop it because she didn't want to. She didn't tell me because she didn't want to lose either option. "You could have told me," I continued, "at any point, before it got this far, before you..." I stopped myself, jaw tightening. "Before you let him touch you." I didn't say it out loud, but the thought was there, loud and clear. Her eyes filled slightly, but she blinked it back. "I didn't think it would turn into this," she whispered. I let out a humorless laugh. "What did you think would happen? You just flirt with a guy for months and it stays innocent?" She didn't answer, because there was no answer that didn't make it worse. I walked over to the window, staring out at the parking lot below. A couple was walking their dog, laughing about something. Normal, easy, uncomplicated. It felt like a different world. "Have you slept with him?" I asked. The question came out flat, no emotion, just a need for clarity. Behind me, I heard her inhale sharply. Another pause, another hesitation, and that was all I needed to know. "Yeah," I said quietly, nodding to myself. "Okay." "It only happened once," she said quickly, stepping closer. "It didn't mean..." "Stop," I cut her off, turning around. "Just stop." Because it always only happens once, like that somehow makes it better, like there's a version of this that doesn't completely wreck everything. "When?" I asked. "A few weeks ago," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "A few weeks. So all those nights after, all the I love yous, all the normal routines, she came home to me after being with him. The thought hit me like a punch to the chest. sat down on the couch, suddenly feeling exhausted. Not physically, something deeper than that, like my brain was trying to process too much at once and just couldn't keep up. She hovered nearby, unsure, like she wanted to sit next to me but didn't know if she had the right anymore. "Why didn't you leave?" I asked after a long moment. "What? If you felt something for him, if you were already this far gone, why didn't you just leave me?" Her face crumbled slightly at that. "Because I still love you," she said. I looked up at her, and for the first time there was actual frustration in my chest. Not explosive anger, but something sharp and real. "You keep saying that," I said. "But your version of love looks a lot like betrayal." Tears slipped down her cheeks now, quiet and steady. "It's not that simple," she said. "It actually is," I replied. "You don't do this to someone you love, not like this." She shook her head, stepping closer again. "You don't understand what it feels like," she said, "to be stuck between two different versions of your life, two different feelings." I stared at her, trying to process that. "So what, I'm just one of your options now?" I asked. "That's not what I meant." "But that's what it is." Another silence, this one heavier than the rest. "Does he know about me?" I asked. She hesitated. "Yeah, of course he does," I muttered. "And he's okay with that?" I added. She didn't answer directly. "He says I need to figure things out," she said. I almost laughed again, but it caught in my throat. "Of course he says that. He gets to be the exciting one, the new one, the one without responsibilities, without history, without 3 years of shared life behind him. He doesn't have anything to lose. I do." "You've been living 2 lives," I said slowly.
Coming home to me, building something with him, and just hoping it wouldn't blow up. "I wasn't hoping that," she said. "Then what were you hoping for?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again, because there was no good answer. "I didn't want to lose you," she finally admitted. "There it is," I said quietly. Not love, not confusion. Fear. Fear of losing stability, comfort, the life we built. But also not wanting to let go of whatever she had with him. "You can't have both," I said. My voice was calm again, but there was something final in it now, something that hadn't been there before. She looked at me, eyes wide, like she was just now realizing where this was going. "I know," she whispered, "but the thing is, I don't think she actually did." Not until that moment, not until she saw that I wasn't yelling, wasn't begging, wasn't trying to fix it. I was just done trying to understand something that didn't make sense anymore. "You need to figure out what you want," I said. Her lips trembled slightly. "I am trying to." "No," I shook my head. "Not like this. Not while you're still seeing him. Not while you're still coming home to me like nothing's changed." She looked like she wanted to argue, but the words never came, because she knew I was right. "I'm not doing this," I continued. "I'm not going to sit here while you decide between me and someone else." Her breathing got uneven, panic starting to creep in. "So what are you saying?" she asked. I held her gaze for a long second. "I'm saying you don't get both," I said. "You don't get me while you figure it out." The room felt impossibly still after that, like everything was waiting for her next move, and for the first time since this all started, I wasn't the one chasing the answer anymore. She didn't answer right away. That was the part that stuck with me later, the hesitation. Not shock, not immediate regret, not even anger, just that pause, like she was standing at a fork in the road and still trying to read both signs before deciding which way to go. And in that moment, something inside me finally settled. Because if it were me, if the roles were reversed, I wouldn't need time. "I don't want to lose you," she said again, but it came out weaker this time, like even she knew it wasn't enough anymore. I stood up slowly from the couch, my body feeling heavier than it should have, like gravity had somehow increased in the last hour. "You already did," I said. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't step toward her or away from her. I just said it, plain and simple, because it was true. Something in her expression broke a little after that. Not completely, not in that cinematic collapse to the floor kind of way, just enough to show that it finally landed. Is there anything I can do?" she asked. That question used to mean something to me. It used to sound like effort, like someone willing to fight for what we had. Now it just sounded late. I shook my head slowly. "No," she inhaled sharply, like she wasn't expecting that. Maybe part of her thought I'd fight harder, that I'd argue or try to win her back, or at least ask her to choose me. But I wasn't going to compete for my own relationship. "I think you should go stay somewhere else tonight," I added. Her eyes widened slightly. "You're kicking me out?"
I'm asking for space, I said. And honestly, yeah, I don't want to sit here pretending this is fixable tonight. She looked around the apartment, like she was seeing it for the first time. The couch, the kitchen, the framed photo of us on the wall from a trip to Colorado Springs last summer. All the little pieces of a life we built together. Where am I supposed to go? She asked quietly. I almost said his place. It was right there, sitting at the edge of my tongue. But I didn't. That's not really my problem anymore, I said instead. That one hurt her. I could see it. But it was the truth. She nodded slowly, like she was trying to hold herself together, then walked toward the bedroom. I stayed in the living room, staring at nothing, listening to the sound of drawers opening, clothes being pulled out, a suitcase unzipped. Each sound felt final, like something was being dismantled piece by piece. At one point she walked back out, her eyes red, her face tight with emotion. I never meant for it to end like this, she said. I leaned back against the wall, crossing my arms, not out of defensiveness, but because I needed something to anchor myself. It didn't have to, I replied. That was the part she didn't seem to fully grasp. This wasn't some inevitable ending. It wasn't fate or bad timing or complicated emotions. It was a series of choices, her choices. She stood there for a few seconds, like she wanted to say more, but whatever was left didn't seem to find its way out. So she just nodded again and went back into the bedroom. About 20 minutes later, she came out with a small suitcase and her purse slung over her shoulder. 3 years, reduced to one bag for the night. She stopped near the door, her hand resting on the handle, but she didn't open it right away. I do love you, she said one last time. I looked at her, and this time I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel hurt in the same sharp way as before. Just clarity. Maybe, I said, but not in a way that matters. Her lips parted slightly, like that answer hit deeper than she expected. Then she nodded, slow and defeated, and opened the door. For a second, I thought she might turn back. She didn't. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and just like that, she was gone. The apartment felt different immediately. Not just quieter, empty, like all the air had been pulled out of it. I stood there for a while, staring at the door, half expecting it to open again, like this was all some kind of temporary break, and she'd walk back in and say she made a mistake. But it didn't happen. Minutes passed, then more. Eventually I moved. I walked into the bedroom and stopped in the doorway. It looked almost the same, but not quite. A few empty hangers in the closet, her side of the dresser slightly cleared out. The absence was subtle, but loud at the same time. I sat down on the edge of the bed, running a hand over my face, and that's when it finally hit me. Not the betrayal, not the anger, but the loss. Because despite everything, despite what she did, despite how it ended, there was still a version of her I loved, a version that existed before all of this, and that version was gone. I didn't cry right away. I just sat there, staring at the wall, letting everything settle into place. All the signs I ignored, all the moments I second-guessed myself, all the times I felt something was off, but convinced myself it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. It was the beginning of the end. Later that night, my phone buzzed. I already knew who it was before I looked. Emily. I let it ring for a second before picking it up. Yeah, I said. Her voice was softer now, quieter than I'd ever heard it. I'm at my friend's place, she said. I wanted to hear your voice. I closed my eyes for a moment. That's not a good idea, I replied. I know, she said quickly. I didn't want to leave things like that. They are like that, I said. That's the reality. There was a pause on the other end. Are you really done? She asked. I didn't answer immediately, not because I didn't know, but because saying it out loud made it permanent.
Yeah, I said finally. Another silence, heavier this time. I thought we had more time, she whispered. That line stuck with me, because it showed exactly where her head had been this whole time. She thought she could keep both worlds going a little longer, thought she could delay the consequences, thought she had time to figure it out before anything broke. But that's not how it works. You ran out of time the second you stopped choosing me, I said. She didn't respond. And after a few seconds, the call ended. No goodbye, no closure speech, just silence. I set my phone down on the nightstand and leaned back on the bed, staring up at the ceiling. The same ceiling I'd stared at the night before, when I first started connecting the dots. But everything felt different now, clearer, more defined. Because now I understood something I hadn't before. Love isn't just words. It's patterns, consistency, the small, unconscious things people do when they're genuinely connected to you. And when those things disappear, it's not random. It means something shifted, something broke. Emily didn't just wake up one day and fall for someone else. She stopped choosing us, piece by piece, long before I ever saw that guy outside her office. By the time I noticed, she was already gone, and all I was left with was the version of her that stayed just long enough to make it hurt worse when she finally left.